Hello, 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 and welcome back to an all-new episode here on the DSENSATIZED channel. As always, my name is Darius Cook, and I'm joined by the lovely Dan Cass. Dan Cass, how you doing today?
Pretty good, man. Just finished a workout, enjoying my coffee, and ready to get into some hot topics.
All right. We're on the verge of a tropical storm here in Florida, so, weather pending. Hopefully that doesn't mess up our stream here, but without further ado, I say let's hop right into it. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Right on. I, this week, have been watching an interesting anime. Have you seen this golf anime on Netflix?
I have. I've been wanting to see it, but I completely forgot that it was out. So I'll have to get around and to watching it. How is it?
I think I think it just started. It's called, or I think it just released on Netflix. It's called Rising Impact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was honestly really into the promotional material for it. Like, it seemed like a really interesting approach. And I love sports anime. Like, I really do love sports anime. I will say it's for babies. It's like
Uh,
it has the tone of like a Digimon or Pokemon show.
I
I've
see.
only seen a few episodes at this point, but it does have like a good, when anime approach sports and they take a different point of view towards it and always give you like a new perspective into it. It does provide that, but the tone and the communication between the characters. I mean, our main character is like 8 or something like that, and
Yeah.
so it definitely feels a little bit for babies, but it's a fun, easy watch.
That was kind of my fear when I was initially seeing some like trailers. Some of the clips looked like a little I don't know how to explain it. Just not like they're really sitting down dissecting what's going on. It's just kind of stuff that's happening.
I think the sports angle is there, but the tone of the narrative that's not around the sports is it's a little. It feels like it's back like 2008. It's like I'm watching Zatch Bell or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, I've kind of, once I realized that, I decided this is going to be my comfort watch. This is going to be the show I throw on when I'm eating breakfast before work for 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'll be consuming it at a snail's pace, and I'll be ready to update you if it picks up and becomes good at some point. Maybe we'll get a time skip. That would be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I was really interested because to my knowledge, I haven't seen any other golf anime. Um,
Yeah, I haven't either. Yeah,
so I was hoping they'd maybe do justice by it, especially because this past year I've been playing a little bit more golf. You've played golf for the first time
that's right.
not too long ago, so yeah, I was pretty hype about it, but that's really disappointing to hear.
Hmm. Well, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully, it picks up. And this
Mm-hmm.
is just biding. This is just a way to bide my time until they drop a pickleball anime. That's what I really want.
I mean, the rate that it's growing, I don't see how it wouldn't happen at some point.
Yeah, I've been watching the Olympics as it is right now, and I'm interested to see which sports make it and which sports don't. But I'm surprised pickleball isn't there. I'm sure it will be soon. But yeah,
I think it just started gaining traction like the past like year or two, so it's probably gonna. I don't know how it is worldwide. I know in the U.S. it's really popular right now, um, but yeah, it's kind of like the new, it's kind of similar like golf in that like you can play it, at most ages. It's not the thing with tennis is you're running back and forth. It's really strenuous. It's hard. Pickleball, you're moving a lot still, but like it's in a very small space. So in theory, you don't even have to move that much if you're playing against someone that's older as well.
yeah. I'm making my prediction now. Though 2026 pickleball anime will be out. That's what I'm calling.
2026. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you're giving maybe like a year and some change. It's a
Yep, I'm
bold
calling it. It's
prediction.
good. We'll see it.
I'm
We'll
here
see
for
it.
it though.
Yeah. How about you? What have you been up to this week? Consuming any new anime, anything like that?
So I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, I was kind of bored, and I had made my anime list like a year or two ago, and I hadn't updated it in a while. And I was like, man, like I need something new to watch. I'm gonna go through like a lot of the popular animes on the show or on the website, and then I'm gonna start adding stuff on my plan to watch. I got around to like 40, 50, which is cool but also daunting. Um,
Yeah. That's
but
crazy. You have 40, 50 on your like plan to watch list right
yeah,
now?
yeah.
Jeez.
I mean, I can concede the fact that I might never get around to some of them. They just seem kind
Hmm.
of interesting, so I'm like, I'll throw them on just in case. But one anime that I have started and stopped like 4 times is Gurren Lagann, and I was like, no better place to start than that because I know it's phenomenal and it's a classic, and I feel like I can't be an anime fan unless I've watched it fully. So um, I started watching a couple episodes a day, and then once I got to the time skip, I got maybe like 3 or 4 episodes in, and then one night I was off the next day, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna binge this whole thing, and I watched like 6 episodes, and I'm really happy about it.
Wow, I'm a lover of Gurren Lagann, so this is news to my ear. I'm very excited to dive into it and get your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the show in full twice. Once when I was like 12 or 13, and once again when I was like 18. And so, it's been a while. I'm 26 now. It's been a long time, even though I've consumed the show a lot back in the day. I'm curious how much stuff I might remember. I have a quick question. How many episodes are in Gurren Lagann? Is it like 28? Is that right?
It's 27,
Okay,
but one of the episodes is like a summary episode. Like
sure.
once, like I
Like
think
between the
it's
two arcs.
yeah, it's a so really 26, but yeah,
So let's do an impromptu review of Gurren Lagann, and let's structure it. Let's talk about part one and then part two. Does that
sure,
sound good?
yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, all right, you're fresh off of it. I mean, what are your thoughts overall of just part one in a vacuum before the incident, let's say?
Yeah. There was the end of the day there was kind of a reason I kept stopping it. It's because like one initially I wasn't a big fan of a lot of the gunmen, like the way they looked. Uh,
Oh
and
yeah.
for me, like a mech anime is like I won't start one unless I feel like they look cool. Obviously,
Hmm.
Gurren Lagann looked awesome, but the rest of them were kind of like goofy, and I'm like, I don't know, like, but you know, they all have their own charm, and as I've watched, as you get through the part, I'm like, oh, you know what, you really get to know the characters that are piloting them. I'm like, oh, it's actually not bad. I was being too critical for no reason. You know what I mean? It's got its own look and its own charm. But the first part was really good. I normally stopped. I think the part where I stopped the first like 3 4 times was after Kamina died.
Yeah.
That was like
Classic.
a punch in the gut. I was like, man, that is my favorite character, and it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a very impactful moment. It's supposed to
Yeah.
really tug on your heartstrings. Because I didn't really care for Simone or anything at first, but now that I've like like gave it a chance and watched through it, like I really enjoyed part one, like the first pre-time skip.
Yeah.
But I think what really got me was the second part, the post-time
Yeah.
skip.
They land on their feet. They definitely land on their feet. But it's such a bold choice. I kind of think that Gurren Lagann will only ever be so popular because I think a lot of people are broken at that point where Kamina passes away. And the next couple episodes don't do a good enough job picking up the momentum. It's not
Yeah,
until like 3 or 4 episodes down the
exactly.
line,
Yep.
post his death, that you actually start feeling that momentum pick back up. But they elevate Kamina to being this absolute cool character. Simone is always kind of the de facto main
Yeah.
character, but it's through his point of view that you're admiring Kamina the whole time. And so, Simone is only cool because he sets up the situation where Kamina gets to give him amazing speeches. Like that's the fun of the show leading up to that point. It makes me think of Death Note.
Yeah.
Death Note elevates L as the coolest character by
Hmm.
far. He's definitely like the reason you come back is that back and forth between him and Light, and then they kill him. And I think by the time you get to the end of Death Note, it still lands on a solid place, but that transition period is enough to make a lot of people fall off. And I think
Yeah.
it leads to like this really weak point in the narrative where Death Note never actually fully reclaimed its glory because you never get that L goodness back. I think Gurren Lagann recaptures some of that
Oh,
charm that
a
you get
hundred
with
percent.
Kamina by the end of the series.
Yeah, and after he passes away, Simone becomes like literally not even irrelevant in the slightest bit for like 2 or 3 episodes before he kind of snaps out of it, which is understandable. But yeah, that's why it's like a little bit slower. You've got other people just kind of piloting um, Gurren Lagann in like the meantime. But um, yeah, man, and one thing that like really kind of blew me away was I don't know what year it came out. It's older for sure, but
Certainly.
like it still holds up so well, and some of the animation is so good. And I'm like, wow, man, I can't believe like some modern day animes don't even like live up to this animation wise. It's so good.
That is an interesting point. I've seen some clips like online of on TikTok a few times over the years, and there's just like a design philosophy or approach that they take specifically with this show, and I think a lot of shows of the time take it, where there's certain aspects of the animation that seem dated just because animation evolves so rapidly, but it has its own charm that almost makes it feel timeless.
Yeah, I think the only gripe I kind of had with the show as a whole was, and while it worked and like it led to some really cool moments, it it never really felt like there was a real struggle to a degree. It was just like, man, we're in a pickle, we're screwed. And then like it's not like they're thinking of a way to get out of it. It's just like Simone's like, oh, I guess I'm more amped up than I was before, and then it just powers up like immensely, and like it seems like limitless to what Gurlong can do. He's just making very specific drills for like seemingly out of nowhere to
Uh-huh.
fix whatever situation, and like it's kind of goofy sometimes, but I don't think they're trying to be too serious.
I haven't thought about that before, but you're so right. There's never like an interesting or smart approach to how they solve a situation, which is like often what we do in anime is like seeing a character figure it out in a very unique way. It's just care more, and
Yeah.
so you're stronger.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It might be like the epitome of like a shonen anime, where it's just like dig deep, give more of your emotions into it, and you will be the victor in the situation.
Yeah, and they like they explain it. It's like a lot of your powers comes from your will. Your those base emotions. That's kind of what it's the spiral is all about. But
Is that the language they use for it? Like the spiral represents like your emotional intent and like willpower that you're throwing into it.
yeah, oh fuck, I forgot the character. The well, they would explain it kind of scientifically or whatever, and everyone's like, can you explain it in like simpler terms? It's like your love or your will, you know what I mean? Like,
Right, right.
so like they had some sort of like real explanation for it, but um, everyone's like, can you dumb it down for me? And then that's kind of what it was in the end. Um, but I think that's why I liked post time skip um, so much because the final kind of fight or whatever, you start seeing a lot of characters like actually dying, and you're like, oh shit, this
Hmm.
is like a serious moment. Like there's actual casualties, like, and you would see like random mechs, whatever, people are piloting them inside, like they die, but it's nothing that you're obviously gonna care too much about. It's like, oh no, like I was just thinking in my head, like there's no way like all these characters survive, right? And then all of a sudden they're just
Hmm.
dying left and right, and I'm like, oh shit, all right, let's calm the fuck down for a second. Like everyone's dying. So
Yeah, I know I just compared it to Death Note, but I'm getting Cyberpunk Edge Runners comparisons as well,
yeah.
where obviously that show is a similar story arc condensed into 10 episodes, but you establish your core characters, and then you have this time skip, and then you have genuine loss around some of
Hmm.
your core cast. Um, one thing I know I'm jumping around like crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, it's been so long, and I'm like rediscovering my love for this show in real time. But one thing I got to give them praise for, I was just critiquing how there's this like dead zone after Kamina dies, and you're building momentum again. It feels like the show is literally grieving the character, and like
Yeah.
it actually gives you, the viewer, the space to grieve the character alongside with the characters around. I know there's a lot of like rain imagery used during this episode, a lot of dim lighting and whatnot. And I just don't know another anime that actually you get moments in a lot of shonen where your big sensei characters pass away, but to actually give the show and the viewer the space to grieve a character is a very interesting choice.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't really think of it like that. That's interesting. Um, yeah, and it's you know at the end of the day they're kind of at war, so it's like yeah they're all grieving, but a lot of them have to keep it pushing too. So it's kind of symbolic of life to a degree.
Sure. Okay, I have a question for you. So this is fresh on your mind. Uh, this is not something I ever considered watching it growing up, but it's something I've been thinking watching anime now. And so I want to look back and see, is this a show? How does this show handle its female characters? I know there's a good amount of fan service. Would that show pass the Bechdel test? Are females ever talking about anything other than the male characters around them?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
The fan service is mainly centered around Yoko.
Okay.
Like,
I know it's specifically her. Yeah.
yeah,
I,
yeah. There's a lot of that. But like she has her own stuff going on. Like after the time skip, you get to see a little bit of what she's up to. She's a teacher. She's
mm,
really she kind of found like a new purpose in life, and that's kind of what brings her to come to join the fight again. And she's thinking like, oh my god, like all these kids that I care for and look after, they're all of a sudden now they're gonna die if I don't go there and start
mm.
fighting. You know what I mean? Um,
I
so
didn't remember that plot. That's interesting. I forgot all about that. She became like a teacher and everything.
yeah, and um, the sisters and stuff like that. They all have their own love interests and stuff. They don't go too deep into them. Um, but Nia,
That's the love interest for Simone, right?
yeah,
Isn't she like half spiral race or
she
whatever they call it?
she's
Viral? Yeah.
anti-spiral. She's essentially like a like AI to a degree, but also not really. It's kind of confusing.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, she's got her own conflict going on, sort of, with her father and stuff like that. But I think it's not too bad. They definitely got fan servicey anytime Yoko's on screen with the jiggles and stuff like that, and even her in the post time skip when they all kind of were going through space and they all kind of had new costumes and stuff. Her was just like egregiously skimpy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
3 inches of cloth
Yeah,
for your
yeah,
new outfit.
yeah. It was, but I mean, normally I'm not too big of a fan of fan service, but I feel like it didn't take away from the plot, um, or like ruin moments. You know what I mean? Like you would see some of the characters lust over her sometimes or whatever, but like for the most part, like people didn't really treat it like anything. Like people just thought like you would think she's just wearing like a suit fully covered. No one really like you wouldn't get like the nosebleeds or whatever in like a serious moment or anything like that. You kind of just don't really think about it at a certain point.
I have another question. I want to know. I forgot my questions. Okay, yes, here it is. Okay, I blinked for a second. So my memory, when I think about Gurren Lagann, like themes that come to my mind are masculinity. Maybe that's more so what I was projecting at the time watching it, but I feel like I just remember strongly walking away from that show with a lot of impression about what it is to be a man and stuff like that. And I feel like they had a lot of commentary on masculinity. You haven't just watched it. Where does that theme kind of sit with you?
I agree. It's kind of like that's kind of what Kamino is driving home to Simone. You know what I mean? It's like uh, Simone was pretty much spending a lot of time just trying to be like Kamina, and then he finally gets the revelation that at the end of the day you have to be your own man, be your own person. Be the man that you want to be. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely there's themes of like masculinity and growing up. Being your own person. Uh, at the end of the day, you have to persevere despite whatever obstacles are laid in front of you. And at the end of the day, a big theme is like the spiral race is like constantly evolving, and that's like and they evolve through moments of like a lot of, you know, pressure, stress. You know, they always get out at the last second. That's like their thing, and that's just them pushing through. So there's definitely a lot of themes of that.
Do you think that's the main theme of the series? Because I'm struggling to think like what was the main message of the series, and is it something about, you know, life is full of hardship and you have to keep persevering with like a optimistic attitude to see through the other side?
Um, I would like to think so because a big thing, the big like the reason the anti spirals existed in the first place was because the spirals would keep evolving to a point where they would like destroy the galaxy or universe. You know what I mean? Um,
Mm.
but when Simone got hit with that revelation, he was like stuck for a second, and then he just like he thought like, you know what, no, like, you know, the future seems grim or whatever, but I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to keep pushing forward. I'm going to like do what I feel like is best for me and all and everyone. Like, what are we supposed to do? Just lay down and all die? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, uh, so yeah, I think so. It's just persevering, evolving as a person.
Yeah, I remember that final sequence where they're all just screaming and throwing their energy into this final drill attack. I remember loving it. And if I recall correctly, that final sequence is like the same imagery that the first episode of the series opens up to. Are you familiar with this?
Mm, so because I've seen the show like four times before, I started off at where I left off. So
Right.
episode one's a
It's
little
been a while
hazy
since
for
you've seen
me.
that first episode.
Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, and I didn't learn this until watching like a YouTube video or something later on, but you know, episode one just kicks off with this slow panning shot where you don't really know what you're looking at until it zooms out, and I guess it's like a mech, but then it just flashes to underground, and you're picking up with the story with Simon and Kamina. You know, no context. It doesn't mean anything. It's just images flashing across
Hmm.
the screen. But then when you get to that final moment, it's, you know, this long, like a minute long sweeping shot that's just following this gigantic mech, and then you realize that's the visual that you got at the beginning. And I think that it has some kind of metaphor on spiral and like circle of time and something like
Hmm.
that. You know, you
Interesting.
know, I'm yeah, I'm doing a bad job of pitching this whole concept here, but I think it's there for anyone who catches the show later on.
Yeah. But like that whole final sequence, like I loved the whole space battles, you know. Um, and like when it got to a point where they were like finally doing the final showdown, they're the anti spirals like grabbing planets and throwing like entire galaxies a frisbee. You know, I mean, like the scale of it's crazy, and then you see clips of people like on Earth looking, and you see just two big mechs fighting like outside from space. Like it was pretty
Mm.
cool. Um, the whole like scenery of the final fight and the animation of some of the stuff was really cool, and even seeing I'm forgetting his name. It was kind of weird. The King Spiral. You know how they,
And I think it has a V. I think his name starts with a V, but that's all I got.
yeah. You know how they kind of kept his head and turned him into like a robot, but at the
Hmm.
end he or like an AI. But at the end he kind of through the spiral became like like kind of alive again momentarily, and
Hmm.
you got to see him kind of redeem himself in a way, which was cool.
Yeah, it's not the first anime I think of when I think of mechs because it's a little bit, yeah, I don't know, but it has the most fun with the mech genre of any anime I've seen, that's for sure.
Yeah, it it
Yeah.
it's a lot of stuff doesn't make sense, but I think that's kind of what they're going for. Like it can be kind of goofy. Like a lot like Simone powering up was like him putting on glasses at one point, and then it turns into like another thing. It
Yeah,
turns it bigger, the Kamina
I
glasses,
guess
and then
star
it turns into a
glasses.
star. And I mean, it was cool. Like I was like, oh, this is cool. Like it doesn't make sense, but I'm here with it.
Makes no sense, but
Uh,
in the moment it's so emotionally
no,
satisfying.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like a lot of the show is like that. Like it doesn't really
Hmm.
make sense. They don't even try and explain it, but it's just fun. It's entertaining. It still tugs on your emotions. So,
When you're watching it, none of that crosses your mind. Like it's only later that you can consider that. Like it's
yeah.
just you're just along for the ride.
Exactly. It's like it doesn't make any sense why his attire would change while he's like powering up as a man. But like
It's so Power Rangers, dude.
but
It's
yeah,
so Power Ranger
exactly. And
coded.
I think they kind of take some inspiration from Power Rangers. I mean, it's a lot of them powering up is like him taking pieces of other mechs, or like at the end everyone's kind of like merged into one big mech.
Hmm.
But yeah, that show's awesome. It's got me wanting to watch. I always mix this up, the two animes. Is it Kill la Kill, or is it what's the other
I don't know
one?
what you're mixing up with, but it is Kill la Kill.
Okay, Kill la Kill. Well, I kind of want to watch that now because it's the same author.
Yeah.
Um, but I know
I
it's
haven't seen Kill la Kill either. That's just like you were saying. You feel like to be a real anime fan, you have to have watched Gurren Lagann. Kill la Kill is like the biggest sin on my record of having not consumed.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should watch that and review it on the pod.
I'm down. I think it's a little bit more fan servicey, but
Yes, I've heard.
but I think I've seen some clips of like the fights and stuff. And they look really cool. Um, so I'm interested. Uh, that's definitely one of the 40 that I have. So
Okay. Hmm. Yeah, maybe we'll check that out. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on Gurren Lagann, or is you think that about wrapped up your overall thoughts?
I pretty much wrapped it up. I think it's a great watch. I think anyone that's into anime should definitely give it a watch for sure.
There's a quote from that show that I've used in my personal life in two people so many times, and it's even if you don't believe in yourself, if you believe in me who believes in you.
Yeah, yeah,
That's always one that stuck with me.
that's powerful. Oh yeah, and one more thing, like the when you kind of saw at the end, like Simone and Yoko had a moment with Kamina, kind of like just them talking for a second. It was. Oh no, they were all in like a dream esque state because the anti spiral put everyone on the ship. Like anyone that was sentient was kind of stuck in that kind of dreamy space, and then he was kind of the one that broke them out. And then especially Simone, he had like an alternate version going on where like Kamina is like on the floor begging because they had just stole a bunch of stuff and they got caught. And then uh, he's like, do you think that like that's not the real Kamina? Like I am, you know what I mean? And that was really
Mm.
cool. And then he kind of set him up to kind of wake up and stuff like that. And same thing with Yoko. They had some closure, you know what I mean? Even though she had moved on, obviously she started picking up another love interest that also died shortly, shortly before
Yes.
that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was a really cool ending. But yeah, that's it for me.
Kamina, the ultimate big bro in anime. He
That's what
might
I'm
be the number
saying.
one big bro in anime. I
Yeah,
gotta say, there's some good contenders. That might be a good top 10 list one day.
and he's
'Cause
only
there's
in
some
a
good contenders, but he's good.
yeah, and he's only in a handful of episodes, and he had such a big impact, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I still get emotional thinking about Kamina. That's weird. Like, he has no business making me get warm, fuzzy feelings in my face 10 years later. You know what I mean?
Dude, I'd love to have like Kamina as a friend in real life. Like I feel like I would conquer the world having that guy as your hype man,
Yeah, we should all strive to be the Kamina we want to see in the world.
right?
Question: Did you watch this in dub or sub?
Sub. I know the dub's
Uh,
pretty good, but
yeah, especially for the time.
uh
This
huh.
is this is a dub that I think is pretty solid. I've only ever seen this show in dub, so all of my emotions are tied to it in that way. But yeah, I think it does have a very solid dub. Doesn't mean anything. It's just images flashing across the
Hmm.
screen. But then when you get to that final moment, it's this long, like a minute long sweeping shot that's just following this gigantic mech, and then you realize that's the visual that you got at the beginning. And I think that it has some kind of metaphor on spiral and like circle of time and something like
Hmm.
that. You know, you
Interesting.
know, I'm yeah, I'm doing a bad job of pitching this whole concept here. But I think it's there for anyone who catches this show later on.
Yeah. But like that whole final sequence, like I loved the whole space battles, um, and like when it got to a point where they were like finally doing the final showdown, they're the anti spirals like grabbing planets and throwing like entire galaxies like